Hey everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. This is Kana and you're in my corner. I'm here with my super special awesome guest, and would you like to say hi to everybody out there?
Hi, everybody.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Barbara Radecki, and I'm here to say hi and answer any questions and tell you about my stuff.
Now, I would like to go way back to the years when you were a wee little child. Did you want to be a actor at that age?
Oh, that's such a good question. I was always interested in creative stuff, So my deal when I was really young was I was always writing plays, and I was always writing stories and trying to get all my friends together to put on little plays in my backyard. That we always had these big intentions that we were going to have these big, community events in our backyard where everyone would come and watch, but we only ever got to the rehearsal process and never actually presented anything. But so my big experience when I was growing up was always wanting to make stuff. It wasn't until I hit probably about 13 or 12 or 13 that I really wanted to be an actress. And we had an amazing drama program at our theater. We were really lucky. I don't know how they got the head of the department, but at the high school that I went to, but he was just so incredibly talented, and he had this amazing way with plays, and he basically inspired all of us to kind of go that extra mile and to really understand what it meant to be an actor, to sort of, all that stuff that we make fun of now, like finding your motivation and being in the moment and all of that stuff. He was very much about that, and he taught me a lot. And yeah, so that really gave me the bug right there. But honestly, and full circle wise, my first love, I would have to say, was writing. And that's actually what I'm finding my way back to now, kind of at the end. So we can do all the middle stuff too, but at the end of it, and the beginning was actually really more about creating and writing and making it come alive.
Definitely, and as long as you're doing something that you enjoy, even if your hobbies or what you like changes, it's
Yeah.
what matters if you're doing it then.
Well, that's it, exactly. And I mean, I think the one thing that I think is really interesting about all of our lives is that everyone, or I would imagine probably everyone, has some kind of creative urge or love. And a lot of us fantasize when we're young that we're going to be able to do that when we're adults, and that we're going to be able to pursue that for the rest of our lives. And then, of course, when that doesn't actually come true, then there's, sort of disappointment or a sense of failure or a sense of, not having, made the dream come true. But I think the thing that we have to remember is that those creative urges, the urge to write or the urge to perform or the urge to sing or make music or dance or any of those, paint, of course, drawing, any of those things you can pursue on your own for the rest of your life as, to your point, as a hobby, as something that gives you that sense of pleasure, that sense of fulfillment, and that can go transcend way beyond what job you end up doing as your career. Some of us are lucky enough to get to do elements of our career for our whole lives, but most of us, let's face it, have to kind of say, okay, the bills have to be paid, and I have to maybe do something else. But in the meantime, you should never give up those. What I'm suggesting is that we never give up those creative loves that we have had right from the earliest days.
Yeah, and I actually agree with that a lot. I mean, when I was 13, I had those dreams of, I want to be a voice actor. That'll be so fun, And I started doing this, and my dream of voice acting waned as I realized, that's kind of a once in a lifetime chance. You either get lucky or
Yeah.
something along those lines. So I realized I'd rather do this. It's safer for me.
And that, well, see, and that is actually an interesting point too, because a lot of people do end up doing kind of a variation of the thing that they quote unquote wanted to do. So you wanted to be a voice actor when you're young, and you're using your voice to communicate right now in this job. My husband is, we trained to be actors. We went to university, went to the University of Windsor and took dramatic arts, got our BFAs, came to Toronto together and thought we were going to be actors. And he did well. He got work and everything, but he found the stress of waiting for the auditions and waiting for the phone to ring and waiting for the jobs to come through. He found that too difficult to deal with. So he ended up using his skills as an actor that he developed over the years to do the work that he does now. He's a trainer now, an automotive trainer, so which is combining his two loves. So I do think that a lot of us also find that we may still use a lot of elements of those things that we developed as children and as young adults in our career choices later on.
Definitely. I am kind of curious, though, how did you find voice acting? Did you start in original animation, or did it kind of plop in your lap, or what happened?
It totally plopped in my lap. In fact, between you and me, and everyone who's listening, between us, I really had never considered voice acting, and I was getting a lot of work in I kind of always thought, I guess, at the beginning that I might be a stage actor because I did start in the stage, and also my training at Windsor was completely theater-based at that time. And then when I came to Toronto, I kind of thought that might continue, and then it didn't really work that way. So the first thing that ended up happening was I started to devote myself and to find my success in film and television, and then I would get the occasional call for voice. And the between you and me part is, oh my God, I would go for all these voice auditions and then just never book anything. So I kind of thought, okay, well, I guess that's not my thing. And then Nicole Toe, who produced or was the associate producer of the Sailor Moon series, she, I guess she either took a liking to me, or I did quite a bit of dubbing work for her that ended up being very good, dubbing stuff from French into English, these series and stuff. So I worked with Nicole actually quite a lot. And then the Sailor Moon series came up, and anyone who's a Sailor Moon fan probably knows or might know that I started off actually as her mother, and then ended up getting the part of Sailor Neptune when that part ended up showing up, I think in the second year. I don't know exactly when it popped in there, but it came up after, like, not right off the top. So at that point, the mother had sort of kind of disappeared from the scene, and the Sailor Neptune and the Sailor Uranus characters, they were supposed to be older, more mature. They had a whole different dynamic than the little girls, and then they offered me that role, and of course I took it and loved doing that one even better.
And you got to see that series sort of explode into a massive, I don't even know what you would call that, I guess a phenomenon.
Phenomenon, absolutely, absolutely. And the funny thing is I had kids who were watching it at that time, and so I really got to experience that phenomenon from a fan point of view, and from like sometimes when you're voicing stuff, or you're doing something that's geared not to you as an audience, you're not necessarily as aware of how prominent it is. And this was before we really had, a lot of internet stuff, and so at first it kind of like it was sort of trickling in that this, that it was taking off, across the world and stuff like that. And then suddenly I was seeing it within my own little world, which was my daughters and their friends, and having Sailor Moon birthday parties, and so it was very strange and fun and wonderful and exciting.
Well, I can say confidently that if I hadn't seen Sailor Moon at the age that I was, I probably wouldn't get an interest in anime and be doing this today. So
that's interesting. And so what is it, can I ask you that question? Like, what is it for you that, as a child, that triggered that interest?
Mostly the strong morals of the female figures. They were still girly. They were still, oh, boys and shopping, yay!
Yeah.
But they had the ability to, stand up, and it taught me a lot of morals, about, like, even though it's goofy and cliche, like, oh, it's all about love and friendship, but there's still nice things to know.
Yeah, well, and I mean, and that's actually one of the beautiful fundamental things about storytelling, is the whole idea that there's a moral there, that life is hard, and we meet hardships all the time, and we always run into obstacles, and I mean, that's true of life. It's nice to have our stories tell us that that if we strive to be good people, if we strive to work hard, that that even though that doesn't make everything easy for us, that we can come out of it and be okay at the end.
Exactly. And your character, you actually got to be a pretty kick butt character yourself. I mean, she
That's
was
right.
calm and collected and got
Yeah.
to actually, I think at one point in the series wrestle with Sailor Moon. So
Yes.
she was
Yes.
the
Yes.
epitome of that.
Yes, yes, exactly, and you know, so all of those developments in the character, of course, they come as surprises to the actors because you don't get the scripts ahead of time. You know, you show up on the day, you're doing your own, you're doing the stuff, you're doing. Like we were doing, I don't know how many episodes a day, but we would probably do about 10 episodes every time we went into the booth. And so we never knew what was going to happen, but then over the course of that day, that several hours, you would go, oh wow, look what's happening to my character. This is really, she's really cool. She's really fun. I mean, Neptune and Uranus were really, really. I just loved those characters, and I was actually quite lucky because. You know, usually when you do voice work, and you probably know this well, you're going in by yourself. You're usually working. It's you and the screen. In our case, we were dubbing, so we had the screen of the. If you're doing regular animation, you're creating the character, so you don't work with a screen. But in our case, we were dubbing characters, so we had the action in front of us, and we saw the animation in front of us. I got to do all of my voice work with Sarah LaFleur, who played Sailor Uranus. So we actually got to be in that booth together every time we worked. And that was actually really, really special because it gives you a little bit more energy to work off of, especially if you've been there for many hours and you're starting to lose your energy a little bit. And then also when you're creating the relationships, of course, they had a very special relationship. So, so it was nice to have her right there beside me that we could sort of develop those characters in tandem.
That must have been kind of interesting considering the fact that in the dub version they were cousins, but you guys knew the origins of their relationship.
Yeah, well, in fact, I don't. There was always so much talk within our little group about what they were supposed to be and what they were, like what they were in the Japanese version and what they were in the North American version. Because in the Japanese version, they weren't. There was definitely more intimation that they were possibly very friendly with each other, and in the North American version, it was a little bit more, straightforward. They tried to keep it a little bit more straightforward. But one of the things I remember is that we kept kind of stuttering back and forth, like where was the line? Where was the line? Were they cousins? Were they friends? Did they love each other? How much did they love each other? So it was sort of more grown up kind of discussions that we were having than just making cute, sweet characters, and I don't think a lot of animation actors for geared towards children get to have those kinds of discussions when they're creating their characters. So that was really interesting, actually.
Definitely, and the fact that you got to be in the same room recording, which is kind of rare for anime
Yeah,
nowadays. So the fact that you were
yeah,
able to do that, it must have been great in moments where like maybe you were captured or one of you was on the
yeah,
ground and you had to do a
yeah.
scream.
Yeah, exactly. Because obviously, when you're trying to create a lot of energy, when you're in tons of stress, and in an action anime like that, obviously the characters are in stress as often as they're not in stress. So again, in terms of that whole trying to get the energy up and trying to make it sound really dynamic, obviously it helps to have somebody else there because you can actually physically help each other if we needed to, hold each other or, whatever, not hold each other, but hurt each other, or, I'm not saying that we hurt each other, but I don't know how to express it, that, that it's coming across in words, but like grip each other to make it sound like it was a little bit harder, a little bit more stressful, we would do that, so, and Sarah was really adorable and really great to work with. And the funny thing with her is she's so super cute, and she kept, because she had to be a little bit more the tough girl, more so than me. I was supposed to be sort of the more maternal character, and she was supposed to be a little bit more the tough girl. And so they were always, she was always, making her voice really deep and low, and that she had to sustain that for for the hours that we were recording. So it was fun to watch somebody else work also. But yeah, like you said, I mean, it's very, very rare that you get to be with another actor in the booth in a voice job, in any voice job. So that's really, really nice.
And I know a lot of voice actors jump around or act like their characters do. You know, obviously they try to not make too much noise, but they have physical reactions. And you guys got to see each other do that.
Yeah, exactly, and that helps to power that up. I mean, the thing is to create a genuine physical response in your voice. It is important to physicalize what you're doing. So let's say you're being choked. I'm not suggesting that you choke yourself or each other, but there does need to be some kind of there does need to be some kind of physical difference when you're standing there than just trying to change your voice a little bit. So one of the tricks in voice acting, and I'm sure you've heard this from other actors many times, is that you have to find the way that your voice sounds the most authentically like what's happening to you. So, in my case, if I have to cry or be emotional, I have to cry and be emotional. Like it's just like acting in front of the camera. Like you still need to be very true to the emotion that you're portraying so that it comes across. Now, maybe not every actor needs to do that. I don't know, but I do think that that's probably happens for actors more often than not, that they really have to find a way to either get to the emotion they need to get to or get to the physical action that they need to be showing.
And I think that's really informative, but I think we're going to take a very short break.
Okay.
So make sure to keep it tuned to 91.8 The Fan, everything you want and nothing you don't.
Swan Dive. Hello, fanatics. Look at the fan. Now back to me. Now back at the fan. Now back to me. Sadly, you're not with me, but if you stop using MSN and Yahoo and change to our IRC chat, you could be with me. Look down. Back up. Where are you? You're in our IRC with the fans of things you like. Look in our chat. Now back at me. I have it. It's a mod kicking those two people you hate. Look again. The mods are now maids. Anything is possible when you use our IRC chat and not a messenger. I'm on a wolf's.
Hey everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. This is Kana. You're still in my corner, it doesn't go anywhere, and neither did my guest. She is still right here.
Hello, I'm right here.
And I was kind of curious, after Sailor Moon, what else did you do? What upcoming, well, they're not upcoming anymore, but what projects did you do right afterwards?
Well, after Sailor Moon, so we're talking 2000 or whatever, that's exactly the time that I started to become interested in producing my own work, not just, as I said before, waiting for the phone to ring. And I produced, shortly after that, in 2001, I produced, or co-produced, I should say, a little Canadian indie film called Expecting. That was it was an improvised film that we did with a little ensemble cast. Colin Mockery was in it, who's from Whose Line Is It Anyway? Great, wonderful actor who's now become a really good friend. His wife, who's become one of my best friends, Deborah McGrath, and she's on Little Mosque on the Prairie and Single White Spenny that's coming up shortly on Showcase. And Valerie Bahagiar and a bunch of other wonderful Canadian actors. And we did this little collective and got this film off the ground and into film festivals, and it was even released on DVD and shows on Showcase every now and then, and I got to play this really wonderful character, this kind of ditzy, the blonde reporter who's kind of ditzy, but who kind of gets her knowledge on life through this experience of her best friend having a baby. So that was really wonderful. And then that led to a few other productions and films that I did. And I did one film, actually, that was just released this year, just this last summer, called The Death of Alice Blue. And that's another fun little indie film that was directed and written by Park Bench and produced and starring Alex Appel. And that's a kind of a fun sort of dark comedy, kind of a little bit quirky, a little bit weird, but really sweet. where a young woman gets this job in this advertising agency, and it turns out that everyone there is vampires. And I played the evil vampire boss of that company. So that came out in the summertime, and I actually forgot to ask them if it was coming out on DVD anytime soon, so I could tell you guys. But that you could look for that as well. And then been doing lots of television work, guest stars, and some series. I did several series. I did a series called 11 Cameras that I thought was just brilliant. That was basically focused on everything was done through, or pseudo done through, web cameras. So the whole series was done as if we were all talking to our friends, our lovers, our children, our relatives through web cameras. So it was a really great concept, and unfortunately it didn't last beyond one summer, but that was a great experience. And I also did, because of knowing Deb and Colin, who are married to each other, I did a show with them that they produced and wrote called Getting Along Famously, that was set in the 1960s, and it was sort of like a pastiche of music and comedy and dancing and stuff. A little bit like Mad Men before its time, but with comedy. So that was a really wonderful experience, and that series also only lasted for a year. And then I did a pilot for a series called Throwing Stones about a curling team, and that didn't go anywhere. But now I'm writing, and as I said at the beginning, I've gone sort of full circle. So now I'm really, really focused on writing and developing my own stuff. Deb McGrath and I have started a blog called The Middle Ages, and it is about not the Middle Ages, but being middle-aged. And all the stuff that comes with that. And we actually have a great fan base now, and actually a lot of young people read it too, because we don't just talk about what it's like to be in midlife, but also all those things that drive you crazy every day, and just being friends and being there for each other. And a lot of people look for that kind of connection with each other, and sometimes people can find it more easily or more comfortably or more quickly on a blog, and or through a blog rather. And so we sort of have made this blog kind of like a community, like a place where we can come and chat and talk about stuff. So I'm very proud of that and very happy with that. So if anyone's interested in looking that up, you can either Google the Middle Ages blog, and it should come up right away if you add blog to it, or you can URL themiddle-ages.blogspot.com, and there will be. And that's kept me pretty busy. And then I've got 3 feature films in development that I've co-written, two that I've written and one that I've co-written, and 2 comedy series, one that I've co-written, and 2 dramas, one that I've co-written. And so those are all in various stages of development. Oh, and there's also a webisode series that I'm developing with some other writers as well. So a lot of those are geared to young adults. The horror film is geared to young adults. The webisode series is geared to young adults. So hopefully those things will make it on the air at some point. But it's a slow process, but it's exciting. I love having that kind of control over what I'm doing, in the sense that I'm not waiting for a job, but I'm kind of in the driver's seat a little bit more.
And it's kind of interesting because you've had so much experience, acting and voice acting. I have to wonder, does that help with the writing process?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's actually funny because, there's that old cliche that everything happens for a reason. I totally think that everything feeds off each other. And, when I was growing up, we were always told you were going to have one career in your life, and that was going to be your life. And, of course, you guys understand really well that your career is probably a fluid thing, that, for a few years you might be doing this, but that'll feed you into another stream, and that'll feed you maybe into another stream, and you'll keep developing your skills, and everything feeds off each other. So to be an actor, to be in front of the screen, to be speaking words, you just really understand how important it is that the dialogue it makes sense, that it's natural, that it comes from an honest place. That obviously helps with writing, because a lot of writers don't, if you're writing everything from your head, you sometimes forget how important it is that the dialogue is natural. Funnily enough, the blog, which I did kind of as a lark with Deb and I doing this together, but that's actually also fed into my written work, because you have to become very conversational and very fluid when you're writing on a blog, as opposed to, you can sometimes become a little stilted or whatever when you're writing fiction, or when you're writing your descriptions or whatever, and so everything feeds into each other. Everything makes it's easier and better. And actually, specifically with the voice work, when you're doing voice work, it's really like when you're acting in front of a camera, you're thinking about embodying the character, sort of every part of you. When you're acting in front of when you're voice acting, your voice, as I said before, your voice has to communicate your emotions, but you still have to also make sure that your voice is communicating your emotions. So that is what makes voice work very useful in terms of writing, because you actually really get a sense of how things need to sound as well as look on the page.
Now, I'm kind of curious, do you have any writing rituals? Like, is there anything you have to do right before you sit down to write?
That's cute. Yes, I actually have to have a cup of tea, and I have to have quiet. Now, that's obviously not so easy if you're working with a writing partner. You're not in a quiet space, but that's also really wonderful too, because writing can be really lonely. But if I'm writing by myself, the ritual is I have to have quiet, I have to have my cup of tea, and I do everything now on my computer. Like when I first started, I was one of those purists. Everything had to be on the page. But I've just fallen so in love with my computer that I do everything on the computer, and I have to have all my pages open, all my little docs open, and all of my sites that I need to reference. I have to have all those open. And that's the other beautiful thing about the internet, is that if you have any questions about something you need to write, somebody told me, write, get it all on the page, and then research your material later. That way, that doesn't interfere with the creative flow. And that's actually been wonderfully handy. And now what I often do, just to get quick information in, I'll research something on the internet very quickly, so I can use sort of correct-ish kind of language, and then I'll do better research later on when I'm not kind of in a free flow. I try to keep the writing process as free-flowing as possible. So that's another little ritual, actually.
And now, onto the beauty of the internet. Is there any place where the fans can sort of stalk you, in a nice way, on the internet, like Facebook or Twitter? Do you do any of that?
Not yet. My Deb was just saying that she thought we should do Twitter, but I would be happy to be stalked on my blog. I love, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. It's the stalking word, obviously, as you did too. The blog is really where I love to chat with a wide group of people. I think we'll probably start Twittering and Facebooking at some point too, but right now we haven't. The whole thing feels so like it's happening so fast, all the different changes and stuff. You never know what's going to be here for the long term and what's not. Like, is Twitter still, huge, or is it going to be out of here next year? You know what I mean? So we're a little bit, how much time do you want to commit to something that if it's not going to last? But that being said, Facebook certainly seems to be hanging in there. So, but definitely come see. If anyone's interested in talking to me, I can answer questions outside of the actual blog questions on the blog itself. So the Middle Ages, come say hi. That's probably the easiest way to reach me in terms of a bigger audience.
Now, is there any way that people can stalk you in real life at conventions, not outside your home?
I haven't gone to a convention yet. The place that I'm sort of most often in public is when my films go to film festivals. I always go, I shouldn't say I always go. I try to go to the film festivals that my films are at as much as possible. That's done now with Death of Alice Blue. I did spend all last summer as often as I could going to the film festival screenings and being there for the meet and greets. But I don't have a film coming out this year, so but certainly if my films get made, the ones that I'm writing, which I will keep people posted on the blog as well, I would always be at film festivals. And if there is a convention and they ask me, I think it's been a long time since I've been asked to be at a convention for Sailor Moon. Are those still happening? Are they still going on?
Oh, yes, definitely.
There you go. Okay, so if that comes up, if someone asks me, I may end up being there, but so far that hasn't happened. I imagine it's probably all the main girls that are asked to do those.
Well, we'll keep us updated just in case, and we'll make sure to tell the listeners.
Okay, for sure. Thanks. I appreciate it.
And as we're nearing the end of the interview, we ask everybody this, but would you be willing to participate in a 91.8 The Fan tradition?
Which is?
We ask everybody if they'd be willing to do a radio bump for us.
To do a which?
A radio bump.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Now, we do this live on air for the mess-up, so no pressure.
Yay!
But we were wondering if you could say, my name is, you insert your name, I do this, you insert what you do, or a character you played in film or voice acting, and you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan.
You're tuned into
She's writing it down.
It's
okay. Everybody does.
And of course, the problem is, which is why I work on my computer, is I can't read my frickin' writing. So.
I'm the same way. My writing's chicken scratch.
Terrible. Okay, no problem. I'm ready when you are.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Hi, my name is Barbara Radecki, and you'll know me as Sailor Moon from blah, blah, blah. Hi, my name is Barbara Radecki, and you'll know me as Sailor Neptune from Sailor Moon, and I'm also in The Death of Alice Blue, which is a fun indie film, and you can find me on the Middle Ages blog, and you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan.
Yay, there you go.
Yay! I can stop sweating now.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell the listeners out there?
Just keep plugging away, everybody. Enjoy your lives, have fun, be creative, and everything is great.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. It was a lot of fun, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners liked it. We have a bunch of people in our live chat who have transformed into Sailor Soldiers. So if you've missed any of this interview, we'll post it up on the website within the next 2 days. So keep it tuned to 91.8 The Fan.